With Collision 2025 in the books and it technically not being a major based on the Lumi rank tier system thing, I wanted to talk about what I feel like is a problem with the Smash Ultimate scene, which is honestly giving too much of a damn about majors and like what they're being called majors. I understand that for ranking systems and for, getting your ranking up, obviously you want to prioritize majors. But at the same time, a lot of the top players that are trying to chase those rankings can also be helping tournaments by going to them and then being a major. If 2 or 3 of the top players that dropped out of Collision and made it not a major by Lumi rank standards went to the tournament anyway, it would have been a major, so that kind of was a self-fulfilling prophecy. But overall, there have been problems with this before, and I just kind of want to talk about it. It is something that has been very interesting to me with the shift over the last several years, probably like since COVID, of just people only prioritizing the highest tier event that they can possibly go to, even if there's not necessarily a high tier event in like their area, and they will just opt to not go to anything, even if, tournaments are within a relatively short flight or not that much of an expenditure. Collision overall has been a super major for basically the entire time it has existed in Smash Ultimate. I think this is the first time it has not been an S or higher tier tournament. We had a bunch of amazing iconic sets, the Tweak Leo sets. I'm pretty sure that was one of the tournaments where Sonics did super well. And overall, the tournament vibes have always been fantastic. I've been to a couple of Collisions. They were really fun and enjoyable tournaments. The scheduling was pretty good from what I remember. They had multiple streams. They had, quad streams. They had plenty of coverage. And at this tournament, it was Melee, Ultimate, and Rivals 2. And some of the Rivals 2 action was like the best I've ever seen it. The production quality was amazing. Probably like only second to EVO because it's EVO. And it was overall really fantastic. And of course, running majors is no small feat, right? Especially Collision 2025 went from a hotel tournament to a convention space tournament or convention center tournament. So of course, there are a lot of costs associated with that. And RJ, because especially a lot of the people dropped out, which it snowballs, right? If a lot of top players are are supposedly going to an event and drop out, then people that are going to see them will also drop out, and it kind of snowballs from there. RJ released a statement basically saying, Melee was great, Rivals 2 was great, and Ultimate could have been great, but a lot of people dropped out, and then there was a lot of momentum stalling because I think LumiRank made a post about what it was supposed to be, and then people were like, oh, that's not good enough, so I'm just going to drop out, and then it kind of snowballed, and the attendance went from I think it was 12 to 14 new signups a day, and then after the announcement, it dropped to 2 signups every few days, so obviously that's going to be a lot of money you're losing. I mean, it's hard, right? Because the economy is bad and people don't have a lot of money. So it makes sense that people can't, if a tournament is expensive and you're not expecting it to be as expensive, you're going to be like, oh, why is it so expensive? I can't go to this thing that I want to go to, and then not be able to go. But also the people running it also have to, have enough money to run the tournament. And even then, RJ apparently had to take out a loan of 40 grand to cover everything, which is a lot. And it didn't impact, the tournament itself in terms of payouts or anything like that. There's no controversy there. But RJ obviously is putting himself in a huge liability to make sure the event runs fine, and is apparently running one next year at the end of this little statement. I'm going to link the statement down below just so y'all can see it. And the thing is, Collision 2025 definitely has the vibes of a major, right? It was one of the things I always said about Combo Breaker as well, is even though there's not a ton of Ultimate players going, it's clearly a major in terms of prestige for the fighting games, and so it always felt like a major to me, even if the competition wasn't necessarily super crazy, and it's a lot of Chicago people and then DeBuzz and Riddles because they go for the fighting games. But it was one of the tournaments where Onin had their first breakout. It was one of the performances, or it was one of the tournaments where Meister had his first breakout back in Smash 4, and really people learned who he was. Same thing for him winning in Ultimate. I think he won that year. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he won that year. So there's a lot of good storylines that can come from tournaments that aren't necessarily S plus P tier tournaments. And I don't know, I think maybe part of this comes from the worry that Japan is going to pull ahead in terms of rankings, because they oftentimes have really deep tournaments that are just one-day majors that happen every month. So, they have monthly series that are just majors and super majors nowadays, and then, several times a year they have P tiers and S plus tiers all the time. Every Umebura, every Kageribi is going to be huge, ridiculous tournaments. But I think that worrying about that is literally causing the problem to be worse, because if you're only thinking every tournament has to be S or P tier or I'm not going to go to it, and you are someone that's worth points, if you are Lumi ranked, or if you are, Lumi ranked 50 to 100 and you are worth 50, 70 points, I don't know how it works. I don't pay that much attention to the ranking stuff like that. or like how much points people are worth. But, you know, if you're one of those people that only wants to go to a super big tournament, but you're contributing, then you could be the person making the tournament bigger, right? And it sucks to, you know, think that all these really nice, prestigious tournaments also have to incentivize top players to come out instead of top players wanting to go to the event because it's a good event. You know, I don't know if that's a symptom of just like, oh, people are trying to make Smash their job, so they only have to go to things where it's like super worth it. I mean, I don't go to majors at this point, right? Because I'm like, I don't think I can recoup the financial cost because I'm like probably not gonna win, and I just do content instead. Because majors are expensive, right? Like, they are expensive. I know MVD made, like, posts saying, like, yeah, it's pretty expensive to go to majors now, especially if you don't, like, you know, split hotel costs. And in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why it's just, like, harder to have majors in North America for the first time ever, right? Just because there's, you know, an actual representation of other scenes in the ranking system. So it's not like all of the top 50 minus, like, 3 people are going to be North America. It's like, oh, no, there's actually a ton of really good Japanese players, and they're getting their flowers, which is deserved, but it's making it harder to get the majors in America just have like enough points, or I guess North America, right? Mexico, Canada, US. It's harder to get them to be as many points because the points that are worth it are like kind of shifting down just because there are so many other players in the top 50 for the first time ever. Again, Smash has forever been a North America centric game, specifically US, especially for like Melee and Brawl. And then Smash 4 was kind of starting to shift. There were more Japanese players in the rankings, more European players, and now there's like 3 European players in top 50. And then like obviously like half of it is Japan and the rest of it is North America. So it can be a little bit harder to get those points and accrue what you need to be a major without having Japanese players go to an event like Riptide or Supernova or Genesis. And I feel like that's making people kind of scared to attend tournaments because they're like, well, if I'm going to spend all this money, potentially not win because a bunch of good players are already going, right? Like Zomba, Beast Mode, Paul, Syrup, like all those players were there and more, by the way. I think Light got 9th. There's a lot of good players that, you know, didn't super perform at Collision. And also, I don't know, maybe people are burned out from the game, right? It could be definitely possible that people are tired of fighting Steve, right? In America, again, there's, you know, in Japan, I feel like obviously the same issues exist. There are still really good Steve players in Japan. You have Akola, you have Daki, you have 33 Parent Box. Like, there's plenty of players that play Steve, whether they do well or not. And I feel like people in America are just like less willing to spend all that money. Granted, because travel's a little bit easier in Japan, right? You have cheaper hotels, you have trains, so it's not as much of a commitment to do something. And also like some of the majors are like single days, so they can literally like train there. Oh, they got like 17th. They have enough time to like leave and go home if they want to, if they don't want to practice. But definitely there's a different mentality when it comes to US Smash Ultimate versus Japan Smash Ultimate. And I feel like that is part of the reason why they have so many majors, is just because people are willing to play and accept the game for what it is, and they don't really super complain about it as much as American players do, where they're like, oh, we should ban Steve, oh, we should do this, oh, we should do that, we should change the rules, we should blah, blah, blah. You know, endless discussions about everything, right? And obviously, like, I agree with some of them, right? Like, I think we should maybe change the stage list. I think there can be more clever things to happen in terms of rule sets and in terms of things being banned, or like Steve or PMLG, or, you know, the lack of counter picks for Steve, something, whatever, right? Like, to try to balance him, you know, even though I'm more of a Sonic hater than a Steve hater at this point, but that's okay. That's mostly because I play Wi-Fi, so Sonic online is insufferable. But like, I feel like just people are unwilling to spend that much money to like make a tournament bigger, or to obviously attend a tournament which would make a tournament bigger and worth more, and they don't want to do that if, you know, they're not enjoying the game as much, which I feel like is valid, right? You don't have to enjoy every single game that you play. Sometimes you just don't want to play as much, and sometimes you want to go mostly to like hang out with your friends, but also hanging out with your friends at the cost of $600 or $700 is a lot of money. And there's not necessarily a solution to this video, right? It's not like, oh, everyone just has to suck it up and deal with it, because, you know, obviously people can have their own opinions of what is happening. But I really feel like maybe just trying to have a healthier relationship with the game, and obviously do things to mitigate costs, right? If it's a far drive and you can, you know, carpool with people so you don't have to spend $300 on a flight, maybe tank the day, right? If you can. Obviously, there's a lot of people in school and college, have jobs, so things can become very difficult, obviously. And I don't know, like, shout out to Japan for loving this game. It is really nice to watch all the Japanese players have so much passion for the game. You know, it's one of the reasons I think Akola has the rawest pop-offs, because even though, you know, people can complain that he plays Steve and he can complain that, you know, he's broken in camping and blah, 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 like, he loves this game, and you can genuinely tell because of how hard he pops off whenever he wins a major. It is fantastic. He has some of the best pop-offs in the business, for sure. And I feel like, you know, the passion is definitely in Japan, and honestly in Europe. I feel like Europe tries so hard, and I think, like, again, I think the vibes-based majors is definitely important, right? Because you have tournaments like UFA in France that are, you know, obviously it's mostly a fighting game tournament, but the production is ridiculous, and then sometimes you look at it and people go, oh, but it's just a it's a B tier tournament. It's just like, you don't understand how much has gone into this tournament, and just because the ranking system doesn't reflect how good this tournament is and how much of a vibe the tournament is, you know, if just because it doesn't reflect that doesn't mean it isn't like a traditionally seen as major tournament, ignoring the Lumi rank stuff, which I understand the Lumi rank stuff is important for rankings and stuff like that, but also maybe there's just an obsession over the rankings that is becoming not so good in the Smash Ultimate community. Again, it was important because it is how things can be valid and get sponsors, and that's still happening, right? Again, mostly in Japan, where you see Raru get sponsored by Zeta, you have the 3 other Zeta boys, you have a bunch of sponsors in Japan. Shutone is sponsored by a really nice, like a really big company. You know, there's a bunch of tournament sponsors in Japan specifically, just because you can tell that they have the passion. And I don't know, obviously, like what their contracts are or anything like that. And while things in North America, like, have sometimes been crumbling, right? You had Panda explode, you had Smash World Tour explode, you had Stride just decide to stop existing, which has been unfortunate for my run and stuff. And then now there's like rumors of Lumi Rank being sold, which I don't know how that's gonna, you know, affect anything, because I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, obviously. So, you know, things can be difficult, and, you know, it's really easy to look at that and be really doomer, but then you look at Japan, which doesn't even play for money, by the way. They're not doing anything for the money except, again, maybe the sponsorships and stuff like that. And they just love the game so much, and they're counterpicking, and they're doing a bunch of new stuff, and then low tiers are making top 5 at P tiers, and it's insane. And I feel like seeing the kind of like split between the two scenes has been very interesting to see, and obviously as someone in North America, kind of sad to see people not care as much about the game, and like complain about it all the time, and people like, you know, are just going to be haters all the time. And I feel like even the scenes in Japan, right, like the viewers are less vitriolic than this, you know, the viewers in North America, which I think there's a reason for that, which is just our top players also do it, and then people think it's cool, and so a bunch of negativity from top players will obviously infect their audiences, and if they're popular people, then it's obviously going to trickle into them, which is a lot of people. That's all that can be, a lot of people, and that's existed for years. That's not like me calling out a specific person, but it's definitely a thing that can happen, which is not great. Whereas I feel like people barely complain about stuff in Japan. Like, oh, the general scene didn't like Min Min for the first, you know, year or two she was out, and then people kind of dealt with it, and they're like, whatever, it's fine. So, I mean, things are different, and yeah, I really just wish that, like, majors had more of a, you know, I wish people, you know, focused on how good a tournament is run and how good a tournament is over how many points they could get if they do well at a specific tournament. And I feel like that's a weird shift that people have cared about for the past couple years, like a lot. And yeah, what do you think? I'm down to know. I'd read the comments in this one. Of course, while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe, and I would appreciate it. As always, social media and partner stuff is down below, and I will see you all next time. Peace.